So, very good afternoon to all our viewers and listeners of Word Alive Vodcast. We welcome you once again to this special episode today. And I know again it's been after such a long time. The last Vodcast was on science and faith, and it dealt from the physicist's point of view. Today, to continue with science and faith as well, we have another very special guest from the field of biochemistry and biotechnology, Sir Thyanswer Challam. Sir, thank you so much for joining us, for availing the time to be here with us. And we, on behalf of all the viewers as well as the team of Word Alive, we welcome you, sir.
Thank you so very much, Mijing. It's a real pleasure to be here. And it's really an honor to get to be here and be part of Word Alive Ministries. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
Welcome, sir. Just to give a brief introduction on Sir Thyanswer Challam. He is a faculty in the Department of Biotechnology and Biochemistry in St. Anthony's College. And he has been teaching there for 20 years, sir?
20 years.
20 years. That's 2 decades. And besides being in the field of academics, he is also very much involved in doing other projects like the if I remember, I think it was Arduino project.
Arduino
projects, yes. So that is, I think, an open source platform.
Open source platform where you make, various things out of processes.
Processes and all. And just to add to it, sir, along with a team of 2 other colleagues from St. Anthony's College, had just bagged the second prize in 110-hour hackathon on biodiversity conservation in Kolkata just last June, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct,
Congratulations,
yes.
sir.
Thank you so much.
And so besides that, sir has also told me that he takes interest in music, making art, and also carpentry as well. So quite a lot of things. But maybe I may be missing out a couple of things. So I would like to give time to sir if he has few more things to tell about himself before we delve on today's topic.
Yes. So my name is, like Mijing has said, my name is Thyanswer Challam. The first time that I saw biochemistry was on my form when I was standing in line at the principal's office in order to take admission. And I asked my friend, I said, "What is biochemistry?" He said, "Well, it's chemistry with a bit of bio in it."
Wow.
And so that has remained, my go-to definition for what biochemistry is. It's chemistry with a little bit of bio. But perhaps today we can go and have a look at a little bit more about what biochemistry is and
Absolutely,
how it deals
sir.
with faith and the rest of science as well.
That's what. Thank you, sir. So I think our viewers and listeners have got at least the basic idea of what biochemistry is. It's obviously biology with a bit of chemistry, or other way around, you can say chemistry with a bit of biology. So having said that, our today's topic is biochemistry, faith, and origins of life. I think all of us have this question at one point or the other. What is the origin of life? And how does my faith play a role in understanding where life originated? So having said that, so I would start our discussion with the very first question. Since we talk about origin of life, so obviously the first word that comes to our mind is creation. What do you think is creation as a biochemist and as someone who believes in God as well?
Yes. So as a Christian and as a biochemist, I look at creation as a purposeful designed way that God has put life together. I do not believe that life has just come out spontaneously. There is a term for that. It's called abiogenesis. Okay. And I do not believe that that is really how life on earth originated. Because if you look at creation, you will find that everything points to a creator.
Yes.
The design, the purpose especially. So, for example, science may give you the how, but it doesn't tell you why. What is the purpose of creation? So when I look at creation, I see it as God's fingerprint, God's signature, you can say. And if you look at it, you'll see that the architect's handiwork is really seen in creation. Yes. And God, of course, is the architect here. And science, of course, lays out the blueprint of creation.
Absolutely, sir. What a wonderful way to put it. God is our architect, our intricate designer, And we have not just been created out of spontaneity. We all have been created with a specific purpose that God had ordained. So now, moving on to the next question that I want to ask you, sir, when we are talking about origins of life, right? Since we are talking about science and faith, and this podcast is actually a continuation of that, so how does science and faith substantiate our understanding about the origin of life?
Thank you very much, Meijing. That is a very deep question, actually. Because if you look at how science and faith, many people seem to think that science and faith are incompatible. But I see it differently. I see it as science and faith being two lenses of the same spectacles like the ones I'm wearing. And perhaps sometimes they may be misaligned, but all you need to do is just align them to each other, and you might find that, that they are actually compatible. So let's take a look at science first. Let's begin with the origins. So the origins of life, we still have lots of questions. In fact, it cannot be explained. We cannot still, despite our technological advances in biology and also in technology, we still cannot make life in a petri dish.
True. Absolutely.
And because of that, if you take a look at the science behind it, for example, science has attempted to explain how life originated. What are the origins of life? James Tour, in fact, said that there is no one who can explain how life began. And if somebody says that they can explain it, then they are probably telling you a lie. And it all started in 1950. There was an experiment called the Miller and Urey experiment, where they decided that let's try and recreate some of the molecules of life. How do these molecules evolve, perhaps? So they took a reducing atmosphere, and together with that, they added methane and ammonia, and they passed electricity through this. And they found that after a few tries, they got some amino acids. And amino acids are basically the building blocks of proteins. And proteins basically form all of life that we have. And for a while, it seemed as if we could recreate the conditions which formed life in a test tube. Then over the course of years, it's been found that perhaps their conditions did not meet the requirements for early Earth. Early Earth was not really, did not really have a reducing atmosphere. It had more or less a mildly oxidizing atmosphere.
Okay, sir.
And so you can say that the Miller-Urey experiment has failed to explain how simple molecules such as amino acids have evolved. On the other hand, if you look at the faith, Genesis 1:1 says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And that's the philosophy that I go by, because since we do not have an alternative explanation,
true, sir,
that must be the one.
Of course. What an interesting take on understanding how science is trying to substantiate the origin of life. I think in our earlier podcast with Don as well, we were talking about this about the origin of life, and we went to the point where we said that people had tried to even recreate Big Bang, because that is what, from physics point of view, we believe that the universe and everything else started with a Big Bang. But then the point is, who started the Big Bang again? The question there arose in that way. So Don and me, as we were talking about it, as we were discoursing on it, so we said there has to be some origin. So now this again ties up when you're talking about the failed experiment where they try to recreate the reducing atmosphere, but however they fail. Initial success was there, but eventually it failed. So there also it shows that there has to be an origin, there has to be a starting point, and that starting point can be brought about by none other than our Creator himself. Right,
absolutely.
So that's very beautifully put, sir. So now coming to my last question, since we are talking about science and faith trying to substantiate the origin of life in terms of understanding it, in what ways do they not complement each other? In what ways do they complement each other as well? Few other examples that we can discuss on, sir.
That is a very good question, and it has a very long answer, and I hope you
Absolutely,
have the
sir.
patience to listen to me. So, if you look at science, especially from my field, biochemistry,
Yes, sir.
so the Miller-Urey experiment was one which I mentioned earlier. Then, in the early 80s and 90s,
Sir.
people like Michael Behe came along, and he introduced this concept called irreducible complexity.
Okay.
This is the belief, the idea that certain things which we see in biology, certain components of life, are so complex that they could not have evolved separately, because in order for them to work, they
Yes.
all have to be present at the same time,
Same time.
in the same order, working perfectly.
Okay.
So this was called irreducible complexity. And so when you look at nature, when you look at biochemistry especially, there are mini machines, you can call them. For example, one of them is an enzyme complex called ATP synthase. And ATP synthase is very, very complex. The moment I saw this when I was a student, I thought this looked very much like a motor.
Yes,
And
sir.
it didn't look as if it could, it was organic. It looked technical, like some physicist must have made this. So that was one. So ATP synthase is one. And up till today, we still cannot explain how ATP synthase originated.
Oh.
How it works, we do know how it works now, but how did it originate?
Okay, sir.
And what were the steps that evolution could have taken to make this all work together? This is still unexplained. Besides that, there are some other machines as well. So one of the machines is called the bacterial flagella. This is a whip-like thing,
Okay,
which bacteria use for locomotion. And it seemed very simple. It seemed as if it's just a whip with which it propels itself in its medium. But the more you look at it, you will notice that it has a rotor, a stator, and it has the outboard motor, which is the whip-like thing. So it seems to have all of these things. And in order for this to work, there are 40 different proteins.
Wow.
And if you consider the probability of one protein having evolved spontaneously,
Yes.
it is, if I'm not mistaken, it's 10 to the power 74,
Wow.
which is almost impossible.
Exactly, sir.
That is just one protein.
True.
Now
true.
imagine there are 40 different
40.
proteins.
Multiply that by 40.
Yes. So it becomes difficult to explain this. Science still hasn't explained it. Maybe in the future we may be able to explain that.
True, sir.
But I don't foresee a situation where science would be able to explain this. Now, this is not all. Just recently, in 2024, they discovered that there were some other machines as well which kept our chromosome in check. These were called structural maintenance of chromosome machines, SMCs.
SMC.
And these SMCs, you can consider them to be the librarians of the chromosomes, of the DNA which we have. DNA itself is
Yes.
very, very complex. For example, even Richard Dawkins, the famous atheist, has actually admitted that perhaps DNA looks as if it has been designed, as if some coding has been done by somebody who has coded. So those are the things which are there. I don't believe personally that science and faith are incompatible, that they're enemies of each other. But I believe that we can see things through different lenses.
True, sir.
And both science and faith is looking for understanding as well as for truth.
Yes, sir.
And I feel that together, these two gives us a more holistic view of who our creator is and what creation actually is.
So, like, regarding the DNA, this is something, it's very fascinating for us. Like, DNA is like our determining our physical traits, our characteristics, our personality, right? And if I'm not mistaken, correct me, sir, if I'm
You
wrong.
are absolutely right.
So DNA is something that is handed over to us from our parents and all that. And it's so amazing that the DNA of every person is different. And that, I think, can be seen in terms of our fingerprint as well, right?
Correct,
So,
correct.
like all of us, like the entire human population in the entire world, we all have unique fingerprints. Maybe in certain cases, in terms of our appearances, we might have slight similarities with certain people. So they say, oh, I saw your doppelganger. But then if you compare the fingerprint, it's unique again. So it's so amazing to think that how God, it's only possible that it has to be the brilliant mind and brilliant hand of a creator like God, who could design us in such a way wherein all of us have got unique fingerprints, and even our DNA being structured that way, right? Very unique and all that. And I think about the irreducible complexity. I do apologize, sir, and also to my viewers, as someone who has like little to almost no knowledge of biochemistry, so certain terms tend to slip up. But even there, what I found it interesting was you were talking about like all those being together at the same time, right? All those variables or components being present at the same time. Otherwise, it would not have worked. And then the other point about the protein, the ATP, I think it's adenosine triphosphate synthase. It makes so ATP. My school level knowledge is still there. So I remember. So even that is so interesting for someone who does not have much idea about biochemistry. So all the more it points out like it has to be the hand of God behind all of this that is setting things into motion in that way. Sir, are there any more things that you can sort of give examples of?
Absolutely. Biology is replete with these kind of things. We would like to know more
because it's getting very interesting, like hearing it from a biochemist's point of view. So,
yes, for example, like you said earlier, I'm sorry, you apologized. You said that I do not know much about biochemistry. I can say the same thing. I don't know much about physics.
Yes, sir.
So, basically, you were talking about fingerprints.
Yes, sir.
DNA itself, we have a technique now called DNA fingerprinting. Where each individual is unique from the other.
Yes, sir.
So not only do we have fingerprints on our fingers, we also have it in our cells as well, as if there is a signature in the cell. Now, besides that, there is one very controversial topic which I will introduce.
Absolutely, sir.
I will not say too much about this, but there's a certain controversial new topic which has come up in the intelligent design space, and this is called the genetic entropy.
Genetic entropy.
Yes, and it seemed as if over millions of years, these molecules, DNA, has actually degraded. So if you look at the quality of genes, from our ancestors, and you compare them to our genes which we have now in the modern day, you will notice that there are these mutations. Mutations are these random changes which happen. And these random changes seem to have accumulated, not to make the organism better, but rather to degrade the organism. So genetic entropy is one very, very strong and compelling evidence that perhaps we used to be a better designed maybe individual or organism before the corruption of sin took over, perhaps.
Yes.
Because if you look at the Bible says that that sin entered creation. Corruption entered creation through sin.
Yes, sir.
And if you look at that and you compare this to the genetic entropy that we see in our genes, then we see that probably this might be true.
So the moment you mention about degradation of genes through genetic entropy, it reminds me of the sin of incest, right? Like we have, I've seen quite a lot of documentaries and certain videos and all where they said that too much of incest had resulted in so much of abnormalities in their offsprings as they keep on generation by generation. So it makes sense that incest is just only one aspect of sin, but there are many others, and I think we can see that in today's world as well. Another thing, sir, that it just came up right now at the spur of the moment. Sir, what do you think about the current trend, wherein like people are talking about the gender, right? You have the male, female, transgender, and then now there's this wave wherein people are identifying as cats, dogs, wolf. That culture has set in, right? Especially in the West. So like what do you have to sort of say about it, and in what way can our faith and at the same time science sort of like take care of that prospect, right? Like we do understand that it is not right in the purview of our faith and all that.
Yes. Yeah, that is a very difficult question to answer. You see, but if you look at it from the lens of the Bible,
yes, sir.
The Bible says that that corruption entered the world through sin, and we were made perfect. Adam and Eve were made perfect, and had perfect genetics, perhaps. But and if you look at males and females and you compare them, you'll find that we differ at the chromosomal level.
Yes,
That
sir.
is, males have X and Y chromosome, and females have 2X chromosomes.
Yes, sir.
Of course, there are individuals who are born with 3X chromosomes or 2Y chromosomes, 1X
Yes, sir.
and 2Y chromosomes, and those are situations which medical science has identified as being abnormal.
Yes,
Those
sir.
are not normal. So those individuals, of course, they are there, but they are present at very very limited quantities. They're very rare. But on the other hand, if you talk about identity, how one should identify, that is a difficult question to answer, because
Absolutely, sir.
yes, because I think identity can be changed, but you can't change your maleness or femaleness.
Exactly, sir.
You can identify as a chair, but that does not make you one.
True, sir. Why I asked is because we were talking about DNA, and so it just came up to my mind, and it's like we see it happening every day, all the more rampant, and unfortunately it's like seeping in even in terms of like brainwashing the children as well. It has come to that. So I mean, it's slowly seeping in if we really look into the West, and I think time is not far when it will slowly come into even our part of the world as well, our side of the country as well. So I think it's very important for us to even talk on those and kind of like through platform like this make people even aware. So as you said, it's kind of difficult in terms of identity and all that, but I think one thing is certain, right, sir? Science has also dictated that you are male, you're female. Your organs are what makes you male, female.
Absolutely.
Beyond that, I mean, it doesn't make sense, right, sir, to say that I identify as a cat, or I am so and so,
Yes.
or I am non-binary. It doesn't make sense. You still have those organs that makes you completely male or completely female. But then you're bringing in this kind of confusion where this non-binary, or I think even cisgender, things like that I've seen. So, and all this anthropomorphism or something in the West and all that. Thank you so much, sir. That was, I know, a difficult question, but it was.
I would like to say a few things
Sure, sir.
about this. If you look at history, you will find that the people who can control the next generation, the future generation, they would be the ones in power. I believe that this is a power struggle, maybe between righteousness and non-righteousness.
Non-righteousness. Yes,
So
sir.
they are targeting our children,
Yes, sir.
making them unsure of themselves, making them question the very fact that whether they're male or female.
Yes, sir.
And these are things which you see in the West, and in fact, governments in the West are even encouraging young kids who are not old enough to get a tattoo.
True, sir.
Not old enough to get a tattoo. They're telling them that, okay, you can go for a sex change. You can change your sex from male to female or vice versa. And this is, I feel, a direct attack on not just Christianity, but on the family.
On the family.
On the
that's all,
family.
sir. Absolutely, sir. Very rightly said. So having said that, let me just wind up with whatever that we have talked about today. I think started with what creation is, right? And sir had defined that it is our master creator who is behind creating everything around us. And we had also talked about the origins of life, and sir had given some very interesting examples from a biochemist point of view. The irreducible complexity, then we also had the ATP synthesis.
Yes.
Then sir had also talked about the DNA fingerprinting, very interesting, which reminds us that how we are unique and how we all have unique fingerprints, and that is like God's signature. That is in fact God's signature of showing that he is a master creator. And lastly, we of course touch on this kind of a little difficult topic, which I think needs a podcast on its own. Actually, it's quite a
I would
broad
agree.
topic, yes. But having said all this, I think it's so interesting for us, especially for our viewers and listeners, to hear from a very unique subject, biochemistry, and understanding slightly better what life origin is. And in all of this, what we see is that God is right at the center. And as the master creator, as the most brilliant architect who have designed everything and created all of us, made us unique and all. So having said that, thank you so much, sir, for your time. And I think I learned a lot, and I need to perhaps go back and read up on a lot of terms that you have used. And one of the interesting terms was genetic entropy. Entropy, we even study even in physics as well. Entropy is actually disorderliness.
Yes.
How you introduce disorder in a system, and that affects the behavior. And it makes sense when you said genetic entropy as well. That is something very interesting for me as well to learn, and it made a lot of sense in terms of a lot of things. And one thing that Sir had pointed out was corruption, how it entered and how sin has been brought forth because of that. So thank you once again, and thank you to all our viewers and listeners of Alive Vodcast. And if you have any questions related to today's episode, please do reach out to us through our YouTube channel or even to our Spotify platform as well. And also, if you have any suggestions for future topics as well, please do reach out to us. Thank you, and signing off from World Alive Team.